50 minutes behind schedule. So I would request on behalf of the chairs that all participants kindly limit themselves to their allocated time of 7 minutes. So first and foremost, Dr. Monika Arora, Vice President Research and Health Promotion PHFI, to present studies related to tobacco, e-cigarettes content in movies on OTT, please.
ये फायदा है ना आधा रास्ता कवर हो गया ये तो पनामा जाना कौन सा आसान है इतना लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस So maybe we can start the discussion.
Yeah, sure.
Because of the time constraint, so what we thought is having a focus on primarily the recommendations and the key points.
Sure. I'll do that. I have a very short presentation. I'm sure everybody has read the papers, but just that wanting to highlight that when we got the 2012 rules, at that time also a research was undertaken, because the same question as was being asked in the morning, where is the Indian evidence? This is what even the court had asked when there was this discussion why India needs tobacco-free film and movie rules. So at that time we conducted this research that you see in the table, and it was very clear that adolescents 12 to 16 years, those who were high exposure of tobacco occurrence in Bollywood films, they were 2.3 times more likely to have ever used tobacco versus adolescents who had lesser exposure. So evidence is very clear in Indian context that the movies have an impact on their usage. Whereas talking about OTT, the major recommendation and the challenge is that this is not public viewing. That is the argument they give. This is not public viewing, this is private viewing. And that is what is something we have to see in our recommendations today, that we have to make case, even if it is private viewing, children are watching it. And that is again very clear from our this study, which shows that tobacco-free film and TV rules actually have helped in reducing the exposure. If you see second paper of ours, it very clearly shows that from 2006 to 2012, there was an increase, because see the graph on the right. As policy developed, the exposure, whenever there was a striking down of this law, the exposure went up, because the producers felt, okay, now we can show smoking in movies. As soon as the High Court or the Supreme Court acted strongly, the exposure went down. So if you see, we did evaluation of tobacco incidents per film. Till 2012, they were increasing. You see the red line, and immediately after 2012, there was a decline in exposure. And this is very clearly, so it was increasing at a factor of 1.1 per year. There was an annual change pre-tobacco-free film rules. And this started reducing with a factor of 0.7. There was an annual change post the policy. It started declining. So, you know, any amount of work we do in school settings, yes, that is important. But one right policy can really bring down what we can achieve by doing regular interventions in schools for 10 years. One right policy brings that hit. So that is the importance I wanted to highlight. OTT platforms, now we can also say that probably this exposure has come down because the audience was shifting to OTT platforms. And we started seeing OTT in India from 2013 onwards. And we saw the whole exposure got transferred onto OTT. And we see that out of the 10 programs which were most popular among these adolescents as well as young adults, at least out of these 10, 7 very clearly violated not just the tobacco-free film rules, but they showed brands, they showed everything, because there was no regulation on it. And the least exposure was among the Indian programs. The maximum exposure was of the foreign programs which were being beamed into our context. The most famous and most popular was The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And please see the tobacco incidents per hour a child is watching. 106 times they are being hit with tobacco use messages. And as you go down, you see that Mirzapur, Sacred Games, these are showing lesser, but still they are violating the law. On the right is the brands which were being shown. So Marlboro very clearly visible in our markets. So this is another study we did, not us as the principal author, but we helped Manipal group to do this, which is KMC Manipal. They conducted this study and we realized that we were doing only Bollywood movies. We took the methodology into regional films, and the exposure in these movies, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada movies, was much higher. So that imagery in Bollywood movies versus regional films is again something very, very worrying. And this was a study where we looked at child ever use and the impact of imagery, but we also brought into the model the tobacco-free film rules. And they are pointing that even if there is imagery, because there are these rules are protective. So they were not moving to ever use. Even if they were seeing imagery, which we saw in the earlier study, they were 2.3 times more likely to use tobacco, those who were more exposed. Here, even if they are exposed, they were not moving to become ever users because the rules were protective. So that is the power which we need to emphasize in our recommendations, that these rules are working. They need to be strictly enforced because none of the movies follow all the 5 policies of tobacco-free film rules. So just that I would like to end here. We can discuss this in greater detail. But we are just emphasizing that there is need to have brand placements looked very carefully. We need to see that the extent of tobacco imagery and brand placement needs to be reduced in these platforms, and monitoring is most important. We need to have a screening committee, or we need to have an expert committee which can look at these policies more carefully. Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing, that definitely there's no doubt that India needs tobacco-free films. But what you pointed out in private, if you watch, definitely it is much more serious because you are watching it in a much more concentrated manner. And another thing which is also important is you pointed out that the law enforcement and the consumption is always inversely. The more strict you are, it always goes down. So it is important to look at these points very carefully. And India is very broad, very big. We do have regional films also, which have their big presence. So that's where we need to have a big dent. And if I was to talk of numbers, 14% children, 20% adolescents, there is an overlap. And then, now families are also watching, and now we also have to think in minds pandemics will come and go. And particularly since last 3 years, when, people watched more of films at home. And that's where OTT platforms have even become, all the more they're posing serious challenges. So thanks a lot for sharing this. And I'm sure if your viewpoint can be, shared in some small thing for wider dissemination, that will be much more helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Any questions?
No.
Okay, maybe. Okay.
Next speaker. Sir, invite the next speaker.
Ranjit ko na? Ranjit hai na?
हाँ करो please.
Yeah, thank you. After Dr. Monika, I would like to request Mr. Ranjit Singh, Advocate Supreme Court. He will be speaking on film and TV rules and how these can be applied to OTT.
So thank you, Chair. Thank you, other dignitaries over there. And considering the time constraint, I'm just going to focus on the law that is presently existing and what we could do to possibly reform it. And just to bring your attention to the entire picture of regulating tobacco imagery in films. So, I mean, how old is this concept? I mean, since when have we been trying? So you'll be surprised, for last 20 years we've been working to regulate tobacco imagery in films. And the initial studies which was done was before COTPA came, and then after COTPA came. So these are some studies that was used as evidence to eventually come up with some regulations in around 2005 for regulating tobacco imagery in films. And then we went to whole scale of litigation from two fraternity. One was the film fraternity and also the newspaper, the print media. So these were two people who were constantly challenging your any regulation that you were trying to impose on regulating tobacco depiction in films and television programs. And out of almost 7 years of struggle, we finally had the law that came out in 2012, 2nd October, which gave a whole set of regulations for films that were shown in theatre or television, cable TV. So that's just something which is very important, and that's why the new medium, which is a very, I feel, I mean, the whole reach is so vast, and which is much more kind of, accessible, is somehow not regulated by the current regulation. That's just part of this thing. The second is because of its the medium, which is mostly which is internet, and it's easily available on your mobile phone, on your laptops, and as well as your television. So there are different mediums that you're trying to get and watch these movies, and therefore regulating is a bigger challenge than it was for your conventional films, which was going through the process of certification. So by and large, the law is one law that we look into, which is your COTPA. COTPA has two things which is important. One, its objective is to eliminate all direct, indirect advertisement and promotion. So that's in the preamble of COTPA. The second is that COTPA has section 5, which is in 3 parts. And the third part is what we actually used. Because if you read COTPA section 5 for regulating tobacco imagery in films, it won't fall very squarely in that. So that was a struggle we faced in the court. So, but because there is one provision which says no person under a contract or otherwise shall promote the use of tobacco. So that's something we normally use it to regulating even depiction of tobacco imagery in films. So I have a very simple question, that if I can use this to regulate one medium, why not I can use it for others? So this is the existing regulation that we have from 2nd October 2012. So all films that are screened in theatres and cable TV have to give firstly an editorial justification. So mind you, when I'm talking about this, if you see in the OTT, you don't require certification. That's what challenges are different. Here you need to go to a Central Board of Film Certification for a certificate before you can screen a movie, and there you need to give a justification. That's the first thing. The second is what is our major achievement is that we have almost 100 seconds of our promotion of health law, advertisement, and that is 30 seconds of anti-tobacco health spot. So we all know who have worked in awareness campaigns how expensive it is to display. Here I'm getting it for free. So if you're showing me tobacco usage, you'll have to show 30 seconds twice, beginning and middle, and therefore so 60 seconds of that, and then you have to show 20 seconds of disclaimer. So none of the disclaimers that you see right now comply with the regulations. Our disclaimers that we initially came out in 2012 is much more graphic and stronger, and therefore so even 40 seconds of that in the beginning and middle, and then there's a static message which says smoking causes cancer or smoking kills. That too is so compliance has been a big issue. Despite that, the fact that there is a regulation, the film fraternity is normally discouraged to do that, and therefore you see some very positive outcomes that came out with the studies that happened. I think you did a great study. So these are three. So that's the disclaimer I'm talking about. Should be there, but we don't see that. Maybe in YouTube you go into some movies you possibly see that, but nobody sees that. That's the initial disclaimer which we recorded using some of the most prominent newsreader at that time. I mean, Doordarshan readers, and who spoke that. Then we have a health spot, and then this is a static message that every film should have. There is also a ban on tobacco product placement, which is what Swasti sir was talking about, that, you know, in Swadesh you're going to pick up the cigarette packs, so everybody remembers Marlboro. So that's there. And there's a ban on promos and posters. So there are two part to the existing regulation of films, which is one part is they're telling you to, if you are showing it, then have A, B, C, D, which is your health spot, disclaimer, and your static message. And second part is that if you cannot show in promo and poster. That's something we are struggling. Still, I think Cyril's majority of work is only targeting posters. So he's doing that. So that's there. And the second part is product placement. The other law, which is the cable TV network rules, there's an advertising code which says you should not promote, indirectly or directly consumption of cigarettes and other tobacco products. So this is a general regulation on, regulating advertisement from any medium, specifically cable TV, that you cannot promote advertisement, direct or indirect, of tobacco products. But there is a proviso which is there, with respect to, where they say that if it is a genuine brand extension, etc., you can do that. So there's a catch there. But there is a law on cable TV also which mentions that. Then there's also a Cinematograph Act which also says that you cannot glamorize consumption of tobacco. But it still leaves room because it says you cannot glamorize. So that could have a major connotation. So if you come back again, it's very simple that COTPA is the only regulation which comprehensively deal with it. Others are making passing reference. So your solution would also come from COTPA only, would not come from there. And therefore, this is one example, is that this is the intermediary guidelines which actually deal with your OTT platforms, streaming platforms. This came out in 2021. They have a reference of films there showing smoking, which could be given higher certification. So here's the thing, when you switch on to Netflix or Amazon Prime or something, and when you see a A certification there, they will list you why it's been given A certificate. Usme smoking is somewhere mentioned there. But it's not making sense because anybody can access that. You just have to click it. You can make your profile and just open it, and anybody can access. So A certificate, even if I think Monika ma'am would remember, A certificates were there before also. But we realized that it won't make much of a... So this is there in some series you would watch, that they would say why this would have been given A certification and smoking is there. So this is part of the guidelines. Existing COTPA rules, like I said, specifically mentions about cinema theatres and cable TV, and therefore do not apply to over the top or online streaming platforms, and therefore there has to be made a change. And this is a living example. Cyril went to the court, and court said, look, it's very clearly says it's to cinema theatre and this is actually the regulating body. And all your streaming platform members, CEO, etc., as per the new guidelines have to be placed in India, are all members of this DPC's GC. And they are very clear that COTPA rules do not apply. So what happens, what we have been witnessing, and possibly some you would go see later also, that we see posters, trailers, teasers, having smoking or tobacco usage scenes. We have seen depiction of teens, something which we have not seen ever. I mean, in the movies, if you see in theaters and all old movies, we never saw school kids smoking so much, but that's a very common thing now. School uniform, smoking in use, that's also very common now. Sponsorship, so if you see that series, it's got sponsorship by Vimal. So you got sponsorships also coming up. Then you got specifically scenes which makes fun of your tobacco control laws. There are a couple of scenes that would be making fun of your tobacco control law, and it can be anything. One scene was that, they said you can't smoke, it's a non-smoking room, and the person goes and just plays with that fire extinguisher and he starts smoking there. And there's one, he says, you can't smoke here, you have to pay a fine of 2,000 rupees. He takes out 4,000 and says, okay, I'm smoking. So these are things where they're trying to make fun of your laws. So, so these are some three images that you could possibly see from the three different series, where you see school kids are actually smoking in their campuses or some other place. So this is very common now. So that's something which we need to look into. I think people from Child Protection Right were here, and therefore there are two laws that come constantly. They want to prevent children from having access to tobacco. One is your COTPA, and they even go to extent you cannot sell it outside schools. There's another one which is very comprehensive. It says that you can be imprisoned for 7 years if you give it to a child. And then you have a child and adolescent labor prohibition, that you cannot have children working in tobacco works also. So there are laws that are constantly trying to prevent children from having access to tobacco. At the same time, you have a platform that is constantly showing you this. So we need to take a call, and I'm thankful to Ministry of Health. So a lot of conversation has been happening for last 3 years, and they have been initially they started writing to different ministries, and the fact that because the medium was not very easy to capture and regulate, they reached out to Information and Technology, INB. Now all of them have come together, and the recent news tells us that they are all coming and saying, yes, it's time that we adopt it. So and COTPA is a way that they're looking at. So this thing would be that we have a very good regulation on regulating tobacco imagery in films and TVs which are shown in theatres, and the same could be extended to the OTT platform, and some good work has already happened, and we'll be hearing soon from them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comprehensive presentation, Ranjit, on the law as it exists and your recommendations on the way forward and how COTPA should be amended. I now leave it to the chairs for discussion, and thereafter any questions from the audience.
I think one point for Ranjit, just not a question, but now as I was hearing Cyril about various things which he has approached the court, and there are various court decisions which were there. So I hope you have been working on it, and because other states might also face the same consequences, which if they apply to the court, and they will also say that this is not as per the COTPA. So I request Mr. Ranjit to kindly guide the states in countering those decisions which are taken by the court, and how the various states can take forward their issues on OTT.
And I request Mr. Cyril to approach me with all those orders.
Yeah.
Seek my help.
Yeah, I think that is important, because now he's here, so you can seek the solutions from that order, how to counter those orders, right? So maybe we can invite the next speaker for the day. Madam, you want to say something?
I said that basically, ultimately everything has to be linked to NCDs as well.
Yes.
And that is where we look at, our 12 task forces, and one of the major task force at the, Ayushman Bharat is NCDs. So whether we talk of misuse of tobacco, whether we talk of junk food, whether we talk of, violence, everything is related to, when we talk of teens. So adolescent health is also another task force. So somewhere we need to have a stakeholders meeting with regard to this, along with not only a kind of the ministries need to talk to each other, whether it's Department of Health, Education, Information Broadcasting and all that. So we need to bring all these stakeholders together. That will be important.
Maybe we can invite the next speaker. Amit is already here.
Amit is already waiting to go, sir.
Yeah.
So
Amit,
without
we
further
would like
ado,
to hear recommendations
Dr. Amit,
primarily
on
from
your-
your end. What are the recommendations regarding that Becker 19 rules?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, and it's a pleasure to speak in this august audience. I'm going to talk about how OTT and what is its links and how it is promoting even electronic cigarettes. I'll be running through my presentation. I hope finish in time. So, what is OTT? That question still remains, in terms of what actually is OTT. Google suggests, and the dictionary meanings is something which you do over the top. So you are exaggerating something, outrageous things that you are doing, excessive, extraordinary, overblown, overdone. So when you do some of these things with the internet, that is OTT. Because normally what we know internet as, people access internet through service providers, and some content which are uploaded, people are downloading it, like you are searching things on Google and other things you are doing. But now what is happening is that they are giving you more than that, in terms of more power to the customers that or the clients in terms of internet. That's over the top. So what is actually it is that content provider is going over the top of existing internet services. So what we traditionally knew internet is providing us, OTT is going beyond that. And it's actually, because of the 3G, 4G, 5G, so you can imagine what is going to happen in times to come. I think we are already seeing people live telecasting their day-to-day life, like I think that lady from the West, Kim Kardashian, I think. Right, so they have Jenner family, so they have their live shows, but so that's, I think I'm looking at where internet will take you, 5G and then maybe 6G. So this is, I think Dr. Swasti was also talking about. So the technology is normally what used to happen when we were accessing content was somebody, a provider, service provider, was pushing content to your devices. But in now what is happening under OTT is the user is pulling content, and that is where whole regulatory dilemma is, that it is not somebody who is providing you the content, it is you who is pulling the content for yourself. So you need to know in terms of whoever is pulling the content is has more responsibility. I think that is what the industry claims. Where we are in terms of OTT in India, 45 million users, so this is all, and so actually by February 65, and this is industry data, so 658 million people in India have actually looked at OTT. So it's almost half of our population already looked at it. OTT users primarily age 15 to 34. This is again very important in terms of which category of people we are talking about. Because when we talk about cinema and theatre, so this is the age which already is restricted, age restricted content, or even time restricted, because the student cannot go to theatres during the school hours, but in this case they are getting everything there. Public opinion about OTT content, one of the industry survey YouGov says 57% people want that it should be regulated, but who are those 50% people? They are above 40. So that's the issue, and I think we all in the room are also around that and above that, and sorry to the others who are so I think so we are talking about regulation, right? So if you ask young people, they say we know what need to be, we know about our choices. That's become more important than your regulation. So regulation for OTT, to my understanding, it's almost none. Although we have Information Technology Act, as a plain simple lawyer, I would say anything that was erstwhile not known, and when things started becoming IT enabled, IT Act was there to say that whatever was happening, which was legal, illegal, we'll now connect it with the IT Act. So if COTPA said that, okay, you cannot smoke in public place, or you cannot advertise, or and somebody is doing it in online, I would feel that it should be covered under IT Act, and because all documentation, evidence for all purposes, criminal and other, IT Act becomes our parent act. Today also, if you do anything against the government, IT Act is used. If you are do anything against SC ST, if you do that, all those गालियाँ आती हैं बहुत सारी OTT पे, लेकिन एक गाली आप जरा वो SC ST एक्ट के अंदर वाली दे के दिखाओ, फिर आपको बताएगा SC ST एक्ट क्या करता है, right? वो सारा OTT गायब हो जाएगा. So I think that is how we are looking at regulating OTT, and even in indecent representation of women act. So you can complain even if that's OTT. In November 2020, the government, obviously there are a lot of things happening. It's not only about tobacco, as we already said. So government said that if you are providing content and you have more than 5 million subscribers, put a chief compliance officer, nodal contact person, and resident grievance officer, which should be in India. So which means you should try to redress complaints of people whichever are made, and even respond to the regulatory authority. तो आप कोई regulatory authority आपकी चाह रही है, so which could be COTPA enforcement officer, they could write to these people in the these service providers or these OTT platforms. Then 21 guidelines came, I think from PECA perspective. So these guidelines suggested psychotropic substances, liquor, smoking, and tobacco. So film, series, serial that portray misuse of psychotropic substance, which is nicotine, also is a psychotropic substance, I think. Smoking and tobacco. Smoking is generally smoking, I think vaping and smoking could be related, and tobacco would qualify for a higher category of classification. Now, higher category of classification, in ensuring that higher classification is not available for people under 18 is my challenge, or is our challenge, and that's the area of regulation which needs to be, in terms of discussed with the people who can do it. Like we are doing for film in the theaters. Then also there are code of ethics again within that rules. Code of ethics, it says what they will do is content which is prohibited under any law for the time being in force shall not be published or transmitted for news and current affairs, and same with other general in terms of other curated content, shall not transmit, publish, exhibit any content which is prohibited under any law for time being in force or has been prohibited by any court of competent jurisdiction. So which means PECA prohibits advertisement of electronic cigarettes. It very specifically defines what is electronic cigarette, and even then if you are putting visuals of electronic cigarette in your content, you are violating. So you are violating the MeToo guidelines and you can be punished. Rules in PECA? No, there is no rules under PECA. PECA is a law unto itself. There's nothing else that is there, and no possibility also, because the law doesn't gives any power to the governments to make rules. No rule making power. Okay, it only gave power that you could change whatever you thought was not correct or inconsistent with other laws or anything, that you could do within 2 years of passing PECA. That's gone. So whatever change we could have thought till December 2021, now you can't do anything to PECA till you go back to the parliament. But PECA defines electronic cigarette. I think all in the house know what is electronic cigarette. One thing that even the electronic cigarette industry or people, they are also not, I think we have not completely prohibited electronic cigarette. It says does not include any product licensed under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. So which means if you really feel that it is harm reduction, reduced harm, and helps in cessation, which is I think more important, discussion in some other forum. So then you should go take this route and then make it a prescribed drug, but it is not happening. You are advertising it as a counter in terms of commercial product. It also defines advertisement. So look at the definition of advertisement: internet or website or social media, and includes through any notice, circular, label, wrapper, invoice, or document. So basically anything and wherever you are doing relates to electronic cigarette, it's prohibited under PECA. Okay, and defines authorized officer. So who need to take action? Any police officer not below the rank of sub-inspector can take action, and it's cognizable, which means the police inspector can actually arrest the person, put up a case before the magistrate, complain, and then the whole system starts. This is the only power with the central and state government, that they can notify more authorized officers. That's the only power they have. So state government can say, apart from the police department, the food and drug people, labor department, the GST, revenue officials, district tobacco control officer, state tobacco control officer, they can take action, or the tobacco control raiding squad as constituted in different districts and state can take action. That can be done. The law prohibits all of this that we know, and as a complete or in any part thereof. It's a very important line, right? So you cannot say हमने ढक्कन अलग बनाया है, ये अलग बनाया है, उसकी बॉटल अलग बनाई है, एक अलग बनाई है और यहाँ पर एक फ्लेवर का सिर्फ लिक्विड है. You can't say do that as per the law. So manufacturing a liquid, manufacturing its a part ढक्कन, manufacturing the battery for ends, manufacturing any other thing, cover even, no packaging. So हमने कार्टन हम तो पैकेजिंग बना रहे थे सर, हमने कुछ नहीं बनाया, पैकेजिंग ही खाली, इसमें इलेक्ट्रॉनिक सिगरेट है ही नहीं. But it is also part of production, manufacture, import, export. So you cannot do complete or in part of that. And advertisement of electronic cigarettes in India, it is prohibited. So no person shall advertise electronic cigarettes, take part in any advertisement that directly or indirectly promotes the use of electronic cigarettes. So which means advertise has a different concept. It's a commercial understanding कि आप advertise कर रहे हैं तो you would say Zool, no please try Zool, it's a good Zool and all that. So that's a brand promotion and advertising. But here it also says directly, indirectly promotes the consumption of electronic cigarette. Now data is very clear as Dr. Monika presented in terms of how it relates to promotion. No, if you are putting anything on silver screen, it has twice as likely that people will try to use that. So which means you are advertising if you are putting any thing on silver screen, whether it is by as I think Dr. Kundu was talking, कि it is the context of in terms of expression, how you want to say कि वो addict था, मजबूरी में जबरदस्ती पी रहा था. That's a very different thing, but it's on the silver screen and it has very different impact on people when they are looking at it. So if one does, what happens? If one does, it is punishable. First time it is 1 year and 1 lakh rupees fine or both. Second time it is up to 3 years imprisonment and 5 lakh rupees fine for advertisement also. So basically whoever is advertising, so you could look at who was responsible for it. Also advertising definition and advertising in COTPA you should look at. In COTPA they try to distinguish the medium, who paid for it, who had control over the medium. All of that language is used in COTPA, but that sort of language is not used in PECA. It very clearly directly prohibits advertising. Again, Juvenile Justice Act, Ranjit was also suggesting, I would want to highlight here causes to be given. Okay, so the law says who gives or causes to be given. Here I feel all these advertisements actually are causes to be given, and if we could do a survey with young people who had tried electronic cigarette and ask them who gave you this, why, from where did you get the idea of taking an electronic cigarette, whoever they tell, that person is liable here. Because under 18 है, वो जो बोलेगा वो हमें सच मानना पड़ेगा ना कि उसको किसने दिया. He said my father gave me, then he is liable. And this law is not only for tobacco, it says psychotropic substance. So that person has given nicotine to this person, a child, and he is liable under Juvenile Justice Act also. Whoever advertises or sells electronic cigarettes to a minor is liable under Juvenile Justice Act as well. To my understanding, and I think doctors in the room can tell if it is nicotine is a psychotropic substance or not. It's not, sir? Okay. So then, no, because intoxicating liquor, narcotic drug, tobacco product, psychotropic substance. If nicotine or anything within that liquid, if anything is within this realm, then it applies. So if it is not psychotropic, then my bad.
But they might use it mixed in electronic cigarettes. No?
Yeah.
They can mix marijuana.
Yeah, yeah.
So then it becomes psychotropic.
No, and the E-Valley case in US had that problem.
That feature.
Yeah, and there it is very common to mix things in the pots. So just completing. So one major question that is there is that is a subscription-based OTT platform responsible for minor access to age-restricted content. Now that is another legal child right, and as our society, we say that it is above 18, but it's a free access. If you are watching at home, is it not your also responsibility as adult? So which means we per se are deviant. adults in the country are deviant, they are not able to restrict that this content is not meant for the child. My child complains a lot against me in the family, that every other friend, every other person in the family also has watched contents which I don't allow her to watch. It's a big grudge that she holds against me. Again, I'm not, but I think just want to tell here that even the code of conduct by the ministry, when defining tobacco industry, also puts all the electronic cigarette manufacturer equivalent to the tobacco manufacturers. So that's the idea, that they are similar, they are same industry and they work same. Surrogate advertisement under Consumer Protection Act, so all these are also surrogate advertising and they actually ban, but there are exceptions to this. This is not very strong law as such, which I understood. So this is what it happens. If this is not promotion of ends, what is? This is in London files. This is a Spotify podcast, Vape Smoke. Shivam shared with me, and I didn't know about this. YouTube and Instagram are again the platforms where you can very easily see smoke free. This is Smoke House Chandigarh. So you go there and they are telling you how to smoke, how to vape. How smoke is already there, but how to vape. How to recharge your I get legend. All of this, and Instagram. If you search vape Chandigarh, they will get you a lot of options to join, connect, and get this. Same with Delhi. This person is putting up the best vape shop in Delhi, so he's talking about that. This is a dedicated organization to promote vape and other harm reduction. They also are promoting snus and other things. I want to leave the room. I want you to leave with this thought: comparing Indian children with the children of the US. Obviously, our lives were not very expensive or costly, or we were not very important. That's okay. But do we also think that our children are not important? Because Master Settlement Agreement happened in 1997. They continue to do that. Now they have also asked Juul to pay money. We are not able to do that neither with the tobacco industry and nor with the vape industry, and we are struggling and still कि हम क्या कर सकते हैं, कहाँ कर सकते हैं, कैसे कर सकते हैं. The industry is enjoying. So that's the thing that I want to. That's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Amit, and giving me homework for Chandigarh, and regarding bringing up the issue of Smokehouse Chandigarh.
So thank you, Dr. Amit. So next, all of you are aware, civil society has played an important role in tobacco control globally and here in our country. So pleased to invite Bhavna ji, Dr. Bhavna Mukhopadhyay, role of civil society in advocacy on the issue that is regulating OTT platform.
Thank you, Rana ji, and thank you, Sipher. And it's great to be here, to be amongst friends, colleagues, and experts. I think Dr. Jagdish made an important observation this morning. The first thing that she said was that India's population is now overtaken China, which is also one of the reasons that OTT platforms have seen exponential growth in India. I think these both things go hand in hand. I think the OTT platforms, the international platforms, the Indian ones, we have a huge gamut of platforms now. I think what they are seeing is the market here. And 26%, somebody said, is the youth population. I think they are all seeing that market, and the tobacco industry is also seeing this market because it is otherwise tied up in other regulations where it cannot advertise. So I think, one must keep this in mind when one is talking about OTT and the violations that we see on OTT. And also, we are talking about Indian Bollywood movies, Hindi movies, regional movies. We are talking about Indian audience. What about the audience in neighboring countries? What about the audience around the world? If you calculate the number of viewers, there's a study of KPMG of 2019 which says 325 million viewers on-demand streaming platforms in India. Amit just pointed out 650 million, in 2022. That's the growth that one is seeing. And if you look at around the world viewers of Indian content, which is on OTT, it is a huge, huge number. And I think we need to keep this in mind, at the back of our mind, when we think of civil society strategies. I think a lot has been talked about laws, regulations, legislative framework. I don't want to be repetitive on that front. But I think without getting confused with a lot of legislation, I think we all need to know that the Section 5, as Rana ji mentioned this morning, primarily governs the advertising and promotion of tobacco. And we've all struggled in the early years on getting some of the things implemented, and it was a huge struggle because in 2005 when it was implemented, it saw a 7-year stay in Bombay High Court, which civil society organization like us, through our sister organization Health for the Millions, we had to go to the court. The government did not vacate its own provision, Section 5, which was so important, and industry knew it was so important, that we had to go to the court and vacate it in 2013. It took 7 years for it to get, or 2012, it took about 7 years to get vacated, and paved the way for implementation of Section 5 and also the film rules as you see today. I won't talk about the studies. Monika has very succinctly sort of talked about the Indian evidence, which a lot of people talk about. Where is the evidence? I think they have done a great job. And of course, WHO has done some great job in supporting some of these studies. But I think if these studies, whenever you did in 2020, 19, if you were to do these studies today, I'm pretty sure that the tobacco imagery depictions are even more intensive and more, if it was in 10 out of 100, it will be at least in 80 out of 100 instances. I'm giving a random figure. So that is what, so if it goes on further without regulation, this is going to increase. It's not going to be only tobacco, it's going to be alcohol, it's going to be junk food, it is going to be vulgarity, it's going to be abusive, whole host of things, which is socially, mentally, physically, it's likely to disturb health in all the contexts. When one talks about role of civil society, I think what we are doing today is very important. I think as role of civil society, we all have done our bit in the past. If you look at all the wins and achievements that we've seen so far in tobacco control, I think none of it has come without civil society intervention. If you look at the smoke-free public places, the pack warning, it was a huge battle, and it took about 5 to 7 years for pack warnings to come. So I think none of the wins that we see so far has come very easily to us, and this is not likely to come easy because we are talking about huge business, we are talking about huge amount of money, both on the side of tobacco industry, also on the side of the OTT platform. So now I think their power has become much more powerful. I still remember the days of the film rules, and I think many of you know that the film rules are one of the best rules that are there in the world. We are a trendsetter, and India is praised all over the world for the film rules. And but it was not an easy win. I still remember that it was a huge struggle, but of course Ministry of Health did take a huge initiative and leadership. That time Ambumani Ramadas, followed by Ghulam Nabi Azad ji, and of course the officials in the ministry. And I remember we all went, Monika, Meera ji, others, we went to meet Ambika Soni, who was the Minister of INB. I think it took a collective civil society push at all levels for the film rules, which are, I would say, fairly implemented in the film halls, in the cinema theaters, over cable television, satellite TV, but not on OTT. The same movies in the cinema halls are having the disclaimers, the health spots, but after 3 weeks when they are sort of released on OTT, they are without all those things. So I think, COVID has further helped water down this whole sort of, policy. And we in 2022, last year, it's about a year now, when we did a consultation jointly with Ministry of Health, the objective was really to understand what are the policies and laws regulating the content curated on OTT platforms, and then how to help devise strategies for framing the comprehensive policies on the regulation of tobacco imagery on these platforms. We had a very good participation in this consultation. There were many representatives from across the society, particularly Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting also came in this consultation. Many public health organizations, medical associations. We also had somebody from film fraternity. I remember Bhumi Pednekar, the young actress, was about to join the show, and then finally she said that no, my next movie I have to smoke, so I can't be seen coming, And that is the case now with most of the celebrities and the actors and actresses now. When you go to them, they've either already done it or they are about to do it, So that is a very big problem when, one sort of wants to get more people. So I think very quickly, I just have a minute. I think very quickly, there are a lot of collective experiences around what we can do as civils. One is first to work collectively, not in silos. Everybody needs to come together like we have done in the past for other tobacco control interventions. Public awareness, today Mrs. Scott talked about it, public awareness. I think it's extremely important, particularly children, youth. I think, they know what they want, but I think we need to give them that knowledge and information, what is right, what is wrong. Sensitizing, most policy makers don't really know the problem that well. They're seeing the problem, but I think legally and otherwise they really don't know what the problem is. I think watchdog role. Cyril has played a fabulous role as a watchdog, continuously sort of recording, sending sort of representations, grievances. I know it's like knocking on a dead door, but I think we need to continue with this. And I would say lastly, adding more voices, getting more stakeholders. Only few people around the room are not enough. I think we need many more voices, more young people, teachers, parents, doctors, many more people to add to our sort of campaign. And then lastly, I think friends from the media can do a very important, role in this. Particularly social media has become extremely important. So I think, these are some strategies that we all can do as civil society advocates. And I think we can once again be a trendsetter and a leader as we are in the film rules. We can also try and do it in the OTT and show to the world that it is possible. I wanted to show some videos, something that Ranjit mentioned. I think I wanted to show maybe in the end if there is some time and if the internet permits, I think we can show some of those. Thank you very much.
So thank you for sharing your thoughts with us from the civil society organization perspective, that is Voluntary Health Association of India, Dr. Bhavna. Very insightful comments as to how we need to make this a mass movement, involve media is the take-home message that you gave. I would now leave it up to our esteemed chairs for the session for their expert comments, please.
I think thank you everyone for very nice, comments during this session. But one thing has been bothering me all throughout. When you look at 658 users of, who have visited this, and Bhavna, you said about 326 million, how this number is created. Please look at your own houses. We are watchful about our children, but when we talk about availability of all these, we all have Wi-Fis and all that. Have we ever bothered to note that there is a help who is there at our home, who is getting the password. We are only looking at our child. So somewhere you need to look at. I asked one of my helps, who recently visited Bihar. I said, how many times, because I was watchful that he is now, gradually getting addicted to this, and, he watches separately. I said, when you were in your own place at Allahabad, how did you do? He said, ma'am, वो तो एक ही दिन में खत्म हो जाता था. पूरा आई कुड नॉट सी, एक ही स्मार्टफोन था, हम 5 लोग इस्तेमाल करने वाले थे. सो समवेयर वी नीड टू लुक एट आवरसेल्व्स आल्सो, दैट वी नीड नॉट बी ओनली रिस्ट्रिक्टिव टुवर्ड्स आवर ओन चिल्ड्रन, बट नीड टू लुक एट द हेल्प्स विच कम अराउंड, एंड वी नीड टू बी रिस्ट्रिक्टिव अबाउट द पासवर्ड्स एंड ऑल दैट, सो दैट somewhere this little change also will make a difference, and we need to spread this message apart. And 2 days back I was in meeting of lifestyle medicine at Maulana Azad Medical College, and I was talking Dr. We were talking about this e-cigarettes and all that, Dr. Swasti, and mind you, majority of the students, in fact, they gave me a skewed look कि मैम कह रही है गजट नोटिफिकेशन है, बट ये तो इतना ओपनली अवेलेबल है. सो समवेयर एट academic institutions we need to carry out, and let us start with the medical colleges only, basically, which are the low hanging fruits, as to how many of them are engaging in vaping and all that. So that's where there is a gazette, but then there is a difference in reality also. So somewhere our own thinking, our own providing accessibility to people is also very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request our next speaker, my senior as well as contemporary Dr. Gopal Chauhan, the State Nodal Officer for NCD and Tobacco Control in Himachal Pradesh, to share his thoughts with us, please.
Thank you, Dr. Deepinder. Thank you, Chair. I think I have not, much to say, because majority of the issues are, policy level issues. But few things which we can implement, because I consider myself more of implementer of the policy at subnational level. First of all, as reiterated by the experts, our main focus is reduction in NCDs. We should remember always that tobacco is one of the risk factor for NCDs, and we have progressed a lot in reducing tobacco consumption in the country. How it happened, and it has been told very nicely by my predecessors. But the tobacco industry is struggling, and they are posing a lot of challenges, because they also want to survive, they want to grow, and they are coming up with the newer product like ends, gutka, and tobacco and pan masala in different pouches, and different ways and means of tobacco promotion and advertisements. And one of the forum is OTT. Yes, they have been successful, because the OTT platform is mainly for the youth, and they have been successful to tap youth for that. And we have two kind of provisions as of now, if we evoke them. One is FCTC, another at national level and sub-national level is KOTPA. Again saying that, because we can't be hypothetical until unless we have something in our hand. If you go to any person, you talk in some SLCC, in media, and even in courts, they will ask, show the piece of paper. And the piece of paper says, as per section 5 of KOTPA, which is, I think, a very strong legislation, no person, those who are involved in sale, production, supply, distribution of tobacco products, and no person having control on a medium. Section 5 implies on two forums. One for the seller, producers of tobacco products, another for those who are having control over the medium. Maybe OTT, maybe television, internet, something like whatever you call. They cannot advertise, promote and sponsor tobacco products or sell tobacco products through these mediums. And I think that the problem is not with the act. The problem is with the rules. Because the rules are specifically saying about television, films, cable network and something like that. They have not mentioned the OTT kind of internet kind of thing, because I don't think that at that time there was much need of saying that. But you know, due to the lack of the rules, we are not able to implement it in letter and spirit, because when we go to the court, they always say that what is the procedure, how you have done it. Most of the cases are, they are turned back due to the lack of the, due to the failure of the procedure. Now the key stakeholders, they are IB Ministry, TI and IT Ministry. I am not clear that, how we can approach, but the TI works in growth, sale, shipment, advertisement and distribution. The IB Ministry should have control. The IT Ministry should have control on these internet and OTT platforms. But still we have to explore more. And I assure you that we will try it. We have already raised the issue in SLCC, which is merely for the, which has been constituted mainly under Section 5 of Kotpa. But the state-specific strategy, which I would like to say that it has to be developed, and we would like to take a lead. I will definitely seek help from Ranjit ji, Dr. Amit Yadav for this. I think that we will be trying to develop a protocol, which will be a state-specific protocol. And after that, we will be trying to launch prosecution. We will be taking on board the IT Ministry, the IB Ministry, and somehow the case will be against TI. We will be developing that protocol, and I think that that will be some sort of model. If that will help us, for application or not, I am not sure, but definitely I am going for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on regulation of OTT, Dr. Gopal. And I would solicit comments from our esteemed chairs regarding Dr. Gopal's comments.
Thank you, Dr. Gopal. Those are practical issues that you have raised. As you said, you are an implementer. We will try to explore what are the modalities which we can frame at the center as well as the state level, and try to sync with the ideas that you have floated for today's discussion. Thank you very much, and we can request the next speaker.
Yes.
I won't introduce myself due to paucity of time. So thank you, Dr. Gopal. To some extent, my thoughts and sentiments echo yours exactly as an implementer, as an enforcer of the tobacco control laws as they stand today in the nation. Again, definitely I would be, I'm on board with you regarding probably jointly developing the protocol that you said state-specific. We could also extend it to, though I really don't, I would like to digress here because the situation in Chandigarh is slightly different. Being a union territory, we adopt the central laws and acts ad verbatim in toto. So that may be an issue in Chandigarh. However, I would solicit support from Ranjit and Dr. Amit Yadav also. And of course, the most needed support that needs to be forthcoming is from Dr. Swasti sir and the ministry, of course, and the advocacy from the civil society organizations and the support from the union as to, this slight lacuna as it exists in COTPA today for timely amendment of COTPA, sir, which is a long overdue issue now. I am sure with the August audience in today's sessions, and so a small example of how we can do our bit is that it was just, I think, day before that Deepinder had invited me to be a guest at a painting competition against tobacco amongst school children, where amongst the senior classes I did interact with one or two children briefly about their thoughts on the issue. So they too are on board, like the better educated children, those wish that they do not show smoking, on OTT platforms. So the small contribution I made is, so far that I've been making is regarding my own daughter, my relatives' children, who are young, who are adolescents. As and when I do get to interact with them, I try to wean them away from OTT and keep warning them about the harms of tobacco and nicotine, of course. But that is just a drop in the ocean. As mentioned, if we look at the number of subscribers of OTT platforms, how many can we prevent? So each one of us needs to do our bit on an individual level, but collectively we need to do much more. So with those words, due to paucity of time and already being way behind schedule, I invite our next and final speaker for the day, Mr. Binoy Matthew.
So while Benoit starts so I would like to thank Dr. Deepinder, very vibrant our nodal officer, just in 3 months of his on this job. So I think really the kind of information, the knowledge he has, really, that is why at this stage doing that kind. So just sir, one request, when we used to enter Chandigarh, there used to be a board, smoke free Chandigarh welcome you. So वो board आजकल वो शायद नहीं है. So वो लगवाइए सब.
जल्दी लगेगा, और लगवाने के लिए आप ही को बुलवाएंगे सर.
हाँ जी, तो again welcome Binoy. The role of print and electronic media. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Since the time is short, so I'll not take much of the time. So just want to show you, as already the previous speaker have already talked about, I just want to show some few videos which we have actually captured it and documented.
Internet.
कनेक्ट हो गया? So there is a saying that there are two forces that can carry light to all corners of the globe, the sun and the heaven and the media. And so all the activities, that all the issues and what we have seen over the past couple of years, the Indian media, the newspaper, the TV and the online media has been very useful in tobacco related knowledge and also opinions, the attitudes and behavior change among the individuals and the general public and the decision makers. So in the last couple of years we have seen how media has actually supported for the tobacco control issues, and especially the pictorial health warnings, or whether we talk about the smoking and film rules also. And in today what the issue that we are been discussing is the regulating the OTT platform, and we would like to thank the Ministry of Health who has been leading it, and from the backstage it's the media that has been doing the stories. But yes, as an advocate, what we are doing that, we have to be careful what the content that we are giving to the media. They should write it in a proper way that helps in supporting that. So it's very important, today we was trying to that if can invite 1 or 2 journalists who can be part of it, but unfortunately the G20 Health Summit is going in Goa, so most of our supportive journalists are in Goa. So but yes, the national media has been really supporting for the tobacco control issue, and this has actually happened with the support of all the organizations which are working on tobacco control in India, and this is a regular engagement that we have been doing it, so that has been helping us in the tobacco control issues. So it's very important. It's both the print, electronic, and now the recent years that we have seen during the COVID pandemic, the social media has also emerged as one of the medium to take it in a more communication way. But yes, as you know that the media don't have time, so we as a civil society organization, we need to provide them support. We need to give them the information in terms of the reports. Like if we talk about the OTT, the reports that which Monika ma'am has shown, that was really helpful. Last year when we did the webinar, how the media have taken up now, and now recently hopefully we will get some good news from the ministry that likely to come. So yes, of course, it's very important to work with the media that we've been doing on. So I just take 1 minute.
पापा के कान में गाना लगाओगे तो आप सिगरेट ले लूंगा। अरे नंद भैया, शोलियत किसी कुछ कभी भला हुआ है क्या?
So I think there's some internet connectivity issue. So this is one of the series on Amazon Raspberry. You can see a school student and also in school uniform is buying cigarette and smoking that.
ये नए आए हैं, हापुड़ से हैं, मियाँ बीवी हैं अकेले, और वो सिरोही नहीं है ईंट भट्टे वाले, उनका मकान नहीं है यहाँ पे, और वो इनके हस्बैंड
So like as I say, like this is really
पापा के कान में गाना लगाओगे तो आप सिगरेट ले लूंगा।
So there was one series called Dehen in Hotstar, whereby again youth in a moving train, he's lighting a cigarette, and when a TT comes कि इसका smoke चालान होगा, तो he immediately say कि you take 4,000 rupees, but I will smoke the cigarette. Similarly, some this college hostel days again
लिख लो, सॉफ्ट कॉपी भी है। बेटा थर्ड ईयर में आकर अगर किसी भी क्लब की गद्दी मिल गई तो सारे जूनियर तुम्हें स्टड समझेंगे, तुम्हारी मिसालें देंगे, अगर पोस्ट छोड़ो तुम्हारे कमेंट्स तक लाइक करेंगे। ये आज की सभा इसीलिए बुलाई गई थी क्योंकि कल से सभी क्लब्स के सिलेक्शन शुरू हो रहे हैं, तो जाओ कम से कम एक ज्वाइन करो और अगले 2 साल तक मेहनत करते रहो। 2 साल झाटो।
So these were some of the we keep on actually monitoring and documenting.
पापा के कान में गाना लगाओगे तो आप सिगरेट ले लूंगा। अरे नंद भैया, ताकि थोड़ी कम बात करनी पड़ेगी।
So thank you all.
Thank you, Benoy. So we all recognize the work, excellent work you have been doing and supporting and communicating what is being done, what needs to be done through print and electronic media. And here कुछ चीज़ मुझे याद आ रही है. We have only, you see, still after many years, we have only one Rijo John working on tobacco taxes. We have only one Benoy Matthew working on for media and electronics. We have only 2 people, Ranjit and Amit, supporting all kind of legal work. So I think this is something which needs to be expanded. How we can have more such people. Otherwise it's really something very small. And so on behalf of all fraternity, I especially thank them, these few people. Baki, whatever Rana and Bhavna ji, everyone else is doing. And so we have another such person among us, Dr. Pavan Gupta ji. who is doing some good work in tobacco cessation. So he is among us. Dr. Pavanji, please, just so that, so on. Yes. Hanji? Yes. So he is doing, I think, work on tobacco cessation in clinical settings. So establishing, developing new courses, how we can train new people in tobacco cessation, and really something, a lot of efforts are required in that area also. So with this, we thank all the speakers, and now final, Dr. Saab, any comments?
Thank you so much for excellent session and bringing out very good points which are, doable and implementable. But please remember, we have to begin from ourselves. That is important. And each one of us, as we said, it's a drop in ocean. But without that drop, ocean will not be, there. That is important. So, good luck to all of you. And it was a very interesting and very, insightful meeting. Thank you, Sipher, and thank you, Dr. Rakesh, for, being the host for the meeting. That is important. Thank you so much.
So
over to
permission,
Dr. Deepinder.
Permission from the esteemed chairs. Before I call upon for the concluding remarks and a vote of thanks, we'll just take a minute, sir. I would request Dr. Swasti Charan, sir, to present a memento and a token of gratitude and appreciation to Dr. Sunila Garg. I would also request Dr. Swasti Charan to give a memento on everybody's behalf to Dr. Rana Singh, please. Sir, the floor is yours.
1 minute, I'll just take 1 or 2 minutes, not more.
Sir, so your 2 minutes have already begun, sir. You are between between lunch for everyone, so you have exactly 2. So you are already down with 10 seconds. 1 minute, 50 seconds, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we have been listening to all these things. मैं जो डॉक्टर सुनीला जो बता रही थी, the only thing is happening is that कि tobacco is in everyone's drawing room now. आप चाहे वो सरोगेट एडवर्टाइजमेंट का हो, चाहे OTT प्लेटफॉर्म का हो, चाहे कुछ भी करो, इट इज़ इन द ड्राइंग रूम एंड इट इज़ अवेलेबल एवरीवेयर. आप जितना कर लो, देयर इज़ गोइंग टू बी प्रॉब्लम्स. दे विल कम अप विद सम न्यू डिज़ाइन, न्यू समथिंग, न्यू फार्मूला, न्यू समथिंग. सो द ओनली वे इज़ capacity building, and that is what I say. So what we have done is we have made into 3 levels of capacity building. Dr. Swasti, if we can just so the 3 levels of capacity building is basically tobacco marshals. Number 1, that is what we are looking at, making tobacco marshals. अभी हमारा जो formula आ रहा है कि हर घर में एक tobacco marshal, right? So that it is just not, I'm just Dr. Sunila जो बोल रही थी उसी को मैं I'm just putting it further. हर घर में tobacco marshals, हर institution में tobacco marshals, every teacher, every doctor, the doctors. अभी recently, sometime back, maybe in one of the meetings, I had a meeting with the DGHS sometimes and said that कि sir इतने सारे every meeting of a doctor there is a tobacco and alcohol. And I was so happy that when this came up that okay, it will not be, they have given an advice. It is an advice, it's not a law, but at least it has come, that it is an advice that meetings held by any doctor should have tobacco or alcohol. That's a wonderful thing, that at least we need to give examples. We have to set examples for others, right? I am setting examples for my doctor fraternity, because most of the doctor fraternities, they laugh, they say, "Arey yaar, onco-surgeon ye kya kar raha hai? What is happening all this thing?" But creating, that is where I have started with the doctors, advise quit tobacco. This is one of the program, that campaign we have started with the doctors, advise quit tobacco. That is, at least whenever a patient will, 70% of the patients who go to a doctor are tobacco users. Today also I met neurosurgeons, plastic surgeons, I met cardiologists and all. They are saying, "Arey doctor sahab, hame chahiye, we need tobacco cessation centers." So that is another thing that I am looking for, कि all hospitals, all places should have tobacco cessation centers visibly placed. That is another thing that I am looking at Chandigarh, at every place. We should start working, every hospital, whether it is private, whether it is government, whether it is whatever, they should have a tobacco cessation center. And they should be certified tobacco cessation specialists. Of course, we have made the digital platform, we have made all this. How to simplify tobacco cessation, that has been my work. How to make it successful tobacco cessation. That is what I have been doing. So that can be implemented, easily adopted. It is like plug and play system. Now we just adopt, we start tobacco cessation center, we train a person, we start it. And that is, if we have huge number of tobacco cessation centers, if we have huge numbers of tobacco marshals at every place, every home we should have tobacco marshals, every teacher, everyone should become tobacco marshals. I am sure over a period of time, we can have such meetings in a closed room. Later on, OTT, there will be something else, something more surrogate, something will come up. So we need more of the people, we need an army, we have to fight. That's my plea, that's all. Thank you. I think I took few seconds more.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Pawan sir, for sharing your viewpoints on having tobacco marshals everywhere at every age. Definitely tobacco cessation is an important issue, but as Dr. Swasti keeps saying, or Dr. Rana rather keeps saying, that show me one individual who has quit tobacco in the recent past that you know of. So commencing cessation therapy is easy, but getting people to stick to the program and even after going through the program to remain quitters for life is a slightly more uphill and difficult task. So having said that, but that is not an excuse for not having tobacco cessation centers. We definitely do need more of them. Your points are very well taken, and so thank you. And now for the concluding remarks on today's sessions and to present a vote of thanks, I would call upon Mr. Rajiv Chaudhary, who is the coordinator at the Regional Center for Tobacco Control at the School of Public Health, PGI. Rajiv.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Deepinder, sir, Dr. Rakesh Gupta, for giving me this opportunity to propose vote of thanks. I, Rajiv Chaudhary, Project Coordinator, on behalf of Resource Center for Tobacco Control, PGI Chandigarh, and Sipher, and Tamil Nadu People Forum for Tobacco Control, extend my heartfelt vote of thanks for everyone present here. It has been a fruitful and very informative day at the consultation for regulating OTT platform to prevent the promotion of tobacco and nicotine use. We had a privilege for hearing from the experts in the field and as well as the representative from government bodies and the civil society organizations. We started a day with the inauguration of the event, followed by the welcome address by Dr. Rakesh Gupta sir, President Sipher, and we express our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Jagdish Kaur ma'am, Regional Advisor from the WHO, for providing an overview of the issue at hand. And we also heard about the various instances related to tobacco promotion through OTT platform from Mr. Cyril Alexander, State Convener at TNPFTC. And we would like to thank our guest of honors, Mr. Anurag Kundu, Chairperson Delhi CPCR, Dr. Rana Singh sir, Deputy Regional Director the Union, Dr. L. Swasti Charan sir, Additional DDG, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, Mrs. Harjinder Kaur, Chairperson Chandigarh CPCR, Dr. Suman Singh, Director Health Services, Mission Director NHM Chandigarh, for providing a valuable insight on the topic. We also want to extend our special thanks to our chair of the technical session, starting from Professor Sonu Goyal, Dr. S. Swasti Charan, Dr. Rana Singh sir, Dr. Sunila Garg ma'am, for moderating the session. During this technical session, we discussed studies related to tobacco and e-cigarette content in movie on OTT platform by Dr. Monika, Vice-President Research and Health Promotion, PHFI, film and TV rules as applicable to OTT by Mr. Ranjit Singh, Advocate, Supreme Court. PACA Rule 2019 rules as applicable to OTT platform by Dr. Amit Yadav, Senior Technical Advisor, the Union, and the role of civil society organization in advocacy by Dr. Bhavna Mukhopadhyay ma'am, CEO of Voluntary Health Association of India, and state experience from Himachal, UT, Chandigarh and Punjab by Dr. Gopal, Chauhan and Dr. Deepinder, State Nodal Officers of NTCP, both the states. We also heard heard from Mr. Vinoy, the program manager communication from VHI, on the role of print and electronics media. So we would like to thank all the speakers, participants for their valuable contributions and insight on the important issue. The recommendation and way forward that were discussed will be documented and shared with all the stakeholders post this event. And I hope you all agree with me that it was a privilege to listen to all these eminent speakers today. Dear friends and professionals, and event like this require meticulous planning and eye for the details. I would like to thank and congratulate all the organizing team members under the leadership of Dr. Rakesh Gupta sir for making this event a successful event. And gratitude to and grand applause for all of us for showing your keen interest in this event, without which none of us would like come to have this participation in the event. So thank you everyone, and in case you have any questions, any queries, any comments on this event, please share on Sipher email ID. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Without any further ado or making anyone wait anymore, lunch is served, and I think we are running way late, so please partake of lunch.